Hey y'all, welcome to the vlog. For this one, gonna be doing some axle stuff, looking at the rear axle on this truck. It took on some water last spring, maybe 6 or 7 months ago, and I changed the oil in it right away, but I was always worried a bit about rust and all that, so I'm gonna open it up, see what things look like, make sure it's not rusty in there, put some fresh oil in like I said I'd do. Out here, it's a cold day. Cold front blew over last night. It's cold, it's wet. It's gonna be a little bit miserable today, but I don't think that's too bad. Holy smokes, $85 there. Not even a full tank. Fuel's getting expensive. Here's our fuel prices, $3.39 a gallon. I'll tell you, a year ago, I was paying something, like $1.99, $1.89. $3.39. What a huge percentage increase in cost of fuel. I expected fuel prices to go up as life got back to normal after the pandemic, or relatively normal, but I did not expect them to get this high. This is the most. Well, I'm off to grab lunch before we get into this rear axle. This rain should clear up by the time we're back. Bit chilly. 39 for the Gulf Coast. That is a cold day for sure. I'm on my way home from lunch. Thought I'd stop at this little spot. No one's here today because it's cold and windy and all that, raining. Looks like a cool spot. I think they got a little boardwalk thing, and there's a body of water of some sort here. I don't know if it's salt water or fresh water, but looks cool. That's a boat launch right there. I'm gonna go take a little walk on this boardwalk, see what sights I can see. I like stuff like this. Got a bunch of buzzards hanging out over here. Might be over there eating something. Looks like it. Well, here's this boardwalk. A little bit swampy back in here. I think it's cool. Probably comes out to this lake. Here we are at the end of the boardwalk. Looking at a map, it looks like this thing is a lake. There's no tides or anything. It doesn't look like it's connected to the Gulf. But it's windy and cold, so probably not going to spend much more time out here. But cool little spot. Come check out. Might be some good fishing in here. I know some of y'all got fuel prices $4 plus a gallon, and so I'm kind of lucky I don't have that, but I am still feeling the effects of it, going from 1 something to 3 something. I knew prices would come back up when life started getting more normal again, but I wasn't banking on them just blowing away, because before all this happened, we had like $2.60 a gallon before pandemic here. Now it's what did we pay? $3.30 or $3.40? Yeah, so it's gone well beyond what it was prior to all this going on. So it is what it is. Now let's get into our Diff oil. Okay, here's our supplies. We got our coffee. Got to have that. I would say this is the coldest day of the year. We did this last year. Coldest day of the year. I did the brake job on this truck here. So it's like annual tradition now. Torque wrench, sockets, the good old Milwaukee there to make things easy. I got a pump here. Got a whole new diff cover, AAM 10.5 here. Came with all new bolts. Came with a new gasket, which we don't even need because I just replaced the gasket 6 months ago. So we're gonna reuse the one that's on the truck, keep this as a spare. So the good news about this, so the gasket's like a $35, $40 value. You can get the diff cover and the gasket and the bolts for 50 bucks. So not much extra money to get a whole new diff cover if you're going to be replacing your gasket. We got gear oil. The 10.5 takes about 3 quarts, maybe 3 1/4 quarts. I do have some extra over here. I've got plenty of extra gear oil laying around. I got 3 quarts sitting here right now. Schaefer's is the gear oil of the day. I bought myself another case of it. I like their stuff. They're good products, and I've used all kinds of gear oil, from Castrol to Valvoline. Valvoline's in it right now. Mobil 1 and Schaefer's. So that's just what we're going with today. Good stuff. I would recommend it. Gloves. I think that's it. Let's get over here and let's work on this. Hopefully it's still warm from the drive. That would be nice. But let's see what happens. All right, here is our old diff cover, which you can see has all these rust spots on. And that's why I decided just to swap the cover off. The rest of the axle doesn't seem to be very rusty, you know, maybe a little bit in this spot here, which is more of those leaf spring spacers. That's probably what it is there. So I'm gonna whip these off and put you all on time lapse real quick. Okay, we're hopping back to video. This actually is not looking good at all. You can see how milky that looks. Obviously, it was contaminated still. So if you remember that video from last spring, I did put quite an effort in to clean the things out with brake clean, to drain it, put new oil in. It's a good thing I'm checking on this now, and we're going to redo that whole operation, and we're going to have to check on it again in a couple of months to see if it still looks like this. I'm surprised how bad this looks, but let's finish this here. Okay, folks. So I'm not happy with how that was. I did not expect it to be milky like that, but I can see a little bit of the internals here, and I'm actually a bit relieved already. I'm just take this cover off, but it doesn't look like I'm seeing any rust or anything on the gears or any of the internal components here. The oil looked all milky and stuff, so I'm fearing the worst, but if we look inside, wow. It's actually clean. This amazes me a bit how nice things still are in here. We're gonna let this drain for a little bit. It's nice and warm. Just drove the truck. The oil doesn't look good, but the inside does. Looks fine. We're gonna hose this down with some brake clean again and all that. I'm not sure what else to do. I tried dealing with this the best way possible last spring, and it is what it is. Alright, here's a close-up look at things in here. The teeth on the gears all look good. I'm not having any problems with this diff, no noise, anything like that. Okay, here we come with the brake clean. We'll start the general spray down. This is like literally, I mean, it displaces oil, but it's also kind of rinsing the inside. I thought this would have done the trick last summer when this happened. That's the idea with the brake clean. It's gonna get a few more coats of that too, and then I'm gonna let it sit for another half hour, and maybe one final little, if I see any more oil, I'll do it again. But that's what I'm gonna do until this thing looks clean and I'm not seeing any more milky oil sitting around. Back to the video. You know, this new diff cover's got a fluid level right about here. It says to fill up to basically to where this thing pops out. How you're supposed to tell where it's at, you know, you can stick your finger in there and guess, but I don't like that. I've always run my diffs roughly up to where it starts coming out like this. You know, I had it down here somewhere, and then I thought about it, and then I started being like, you know, worried it's too low. And I know I'm going to come in and pull a little sample out of this in a few weeks anyways, so I am going to pull a pump or two worth of oil out of here, and this fluid level is going to drop a bit. So I figure when I do that, I may just not top it off. So I'm just letting this oil drain off. I'm also kind of spreading it all over the new cover and these new bolts because that's going to, you know, give me a nice little layer of rust protection for at least for a short time. But yep, I think this will cure the problem. I don't think it's going to get milky again. If it does, I'd be surprised. I think maybe I consider changing the oil early. Might change it after maybe 20K or something like that this time. But I'll take the sample in 1 month and we'll go from there and make some decisions there. I think this is going to be just fine from here on out. So, alrighty. Pause the video here. Ow. That was my head hitting the hitch. By the way, these bolts going all the way around. The owner's manual says to torque them down to something like 30 foot-pounds. I think it's a little bit tight. I did 26 foot-pounds and then I double-clicked the torque wrench, so it's probably about 27 foot-pounds. And the bolts have thread locker on. These new bolts had a thread locker for anti-vibration. So I think that's going to do it for this video. Hopefully we're all good going forward from here. Diff cover looks nice. And I will have another diff video coming up on the 09. Something a little bit different than what we're doing here. But I'm going to be looking at the rear diff on that truck. And if you don't see that in the next week or so, I'm probably going to be waiting till later in the month to do it. In other news, I did change the diff oil in both the front and the rears, or both front and the rear on this truck, but just the front on the 09. And diff oil looked just fine on this truck on the front with 61K on it too. That oil, it just came out, only had 6,600 on it, roughly. So glad I checked it, glad I got it changed, and we're gonna figure this out in about a month whether or not we're good to go. So with that said, I'm gonna end it here. Y'all have a good one. I'll see you next time. Here's a quick look at how that oil looks. That green stuff is the fresh Schaefer's that dropped in here. Rest of it came right out of the diff. Yeah, not good. Not good at all, but I'm happy to say that the diff looks decent. Here's a Walmart shelf for diesel engine oil. And I'm not seeing much. We got a couple big jugs here. If you really wanted to, you could get one of these 2.5 gallons. but I'm not seeing any 1 gallons besides this Super Tech. T5 would usually sit here, T4 would sit here. I don't think that's not, well, it's not what we would use. Yeah, so the only options are these big jugs down here and these ones. That's all I got. No Dello 1 gallon jugs, no Rotella 1 gallon jugs. Got a couple quarts. That's not much.